What's going on, Chuckleheads? Welcome to Voices in the Stands. And if you'll bear with me for a little bit, I wrote some things down so that I can explain everything, and then we'll introduce everybody that's a part of the panel. This isn't a show where you have a bunch of analysts or insiders. We're just fans. We're a bunch of guys that like to talk about D3 football. We talk about it enough online, through Twitter, through other social media avenues. So we decided to get together and talk about D3 football as fans for fans. We don't have all the answers. We're going to cover different topics. We have a lot of opinions. Everybody has an opinion. But we want to hear your opinion as well. So grab a seat and enjoy Voices in the Stands. That being said, I am Carlo Guadagnino. I am the host, kind of. Matt will also do some hosting as well. And with that, let's introduce the panel. Matt, you want to start things off?
Yeah, sure. So I'm doing all the clicks behind the scenes here, so we'll bear with me here for episode number 1. But yeah, Matt Nickel, I do all of our voice of Augustana football, baseball. Graduated from Augie in 2005, played there for a little bit in the early part of my collegiate career, and yeah, I've been calling their football since I think 2019 now. But have a lot of discussions at tailgates, both before and after. So excited to see what comes about of this.
And bringing it back to the East Coast, let's hear it from Moose Hogan. Tony. Tony, go ahead.
Hey, folks. Tony Maldonado. All opinions are my own. Not officially affiliated with Utica University, but my son is a former football player. Very, very engaged in kind of the fandom of Utica football. Many tailgates. Many may know me as Moose Hogan. He may or may not be retired. We may or may not see him. But excited to talk this tailgate style of football. Very opinionated. Got a lot of opinions, not only from a fan's perspective, from a parent's perspective, but also just from a football lover's perspective.
And let's get our North Central crew out of the way down there so they don't feel neglected. Whichever one of you would like to go first, you're more than welcome to introduce yourselves.
Age before beauty, David. Go for it, my man.
Yeah, well, I think I may be the grandpa of the group, as evidenced by the total forehead and less hair. But yeah, I played back at North Central in the '80s, and great time, great experience. And I'm just a passionate fan of college football, and I'm even more passionate about the organizations I've been a part of, whether it be Pop Warner here at home in Valparaiso, Indiana, my high school, or North Central. But love the game. I think the kids that play D3 football and most of D3 athletics are all incredible young men and women. And I think getting together in a format like this is outstanding. And hats off to all those players. And just love the game. Great to be here with a few other guys that I know don't have very strong opinions.
And then next from our North Central group.
Yeah, man, I go by Rambo's Carving Knife on Twitter. I could tell you my name, but who cares? That's how everybody knows me. And that's where the ball gets rolling with that. But, Carlo, I've told you this story before, so I'll tell the rest of the guys. I've only been a D3 football fan since 2022, okay? And it all started, I'm a dance dad. My daughter is a 4-time national champion at North Central, but I have no football player there. And the reason it started all the high school games, my daughter with Palms dance, all that. And then I hear, we do the games at North Central now when she was coming in. I said, oh, fuck, you got to be kidding me. More football games if I have no kid on the team and all this. And I said, whatever. And then I'm like, my wife's like, well, come on, game Saturday, we're going to watch her. And I'm like, yeah. She dragged me. I was like trying to get out of it. And I go, and dude, I was that kid that played Nintendo and I put it on easy and I tried to score 200 points on the teams I played. And I got to that game, man. And it was 2022 and they opened against Elmhurst. And I didn't know who a Luke Lanin was. I didn't know shit. And I'm watching this bing, bang, bang. It's 50-0 at half. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, I could get into this. And I'm running, they win. It's like 80-6 or something. And I'm running around town. I'm like, they won the game 80-6. And we're at a restaurant, and they're like, who? And I'm like, oh, North Central College. They're like, oh yeah, that's normal. I'm like, what? And I go to the ice cream, Ben and Jerry's. We get ice cream. I'm like, oh, dude, you should have seen the game. They won like 86. And he's like, oh yeah, that's normal. And I was like, and then I was hooked from that point on. I looked for content, you name it, and then I kind of did my own little bit of content. I still do a little bit of stuff, but that's it. That's how I got involved. So that's my story. How I jumped into this.
Texas, what do we have for you? For us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm Cooper on Twitter or X as Couch Crew 17. If you are a Mayor Hardin Baylor fan or even a fan of the conference, you'll understand what the Couch Crew reference is, which I'd be happy to tell that story at some point. It goes way back to the beginnings of the program when I was a little kid. I am from the area, so I kind of grew up watching the team, and then had the pleasure of being a part of the team as an athlete in 2016 and 17. So it's been really cool to watch the program grow, because it really has grown. The whole university's grown. I'm a fan of football in general, Division I football, Division II. I really follow it all. So when the guys reached out about doing the show, I really wanted to be a part of it, just because I love football. I mean, my wife wasn't super thrilled that I was going to be doing during the season, just because it's already a busy time of the year, but I had to do it, had to come out and show out for the D3 gang. So yeah, excited to be here, guys.
And then our WIAC representation, whoever wants to go first, just raise your hand, I guess.
Yeah. Hey guys, Josh, Southern Wisconsin, Whitewater graduate of 2003. Been in radio part-time since I was 18, and this is our 4th year coming up doing the UW Whitewater play-by-play. My analyst is a former Warhawk from the 70s when he played linebacker for Forrest Perkins, of who the stadium is named after. And this is just a wild ride. I love radio. I love the program, and I love what we're doing. And just glad to be able to be with you guys and travel around and watch Division III football, something that is still, fairly in its infancy to me, and following, especially the nation stuff, still trying to get, the WIAC under my belt completely, but starting to really get in the flow of things. But traveling around, going down to Belton for the second time in 4 years, looking forward to the media spread in the stadium. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah,
Man's got to eat.
And last but not least,
Yeah. So Josh is representing southeast Wisconsin. We may be in the same state, but we're pretty far away. I'm up in the northwest area of the state in Eau Claire. My name is Mike, and I played 4 years at UW Eau Claire. I go to a D3 game about every week. You can find me live tweeting those on Twitter. I'm very involved with the sport. I do my own top 25 other podcasts weekly too. And because I'm really close to the border, the Minnesota border, that is where I live, I'm pretty involved with the MIAC as well. So I've gone to a lot of games over there in the cities, so it's not too far from me. So Josh has got that eastern side of the state covered, and I got the whole west side covered.
well, and as everybody can see, we have a collective group from East, West, South, and Central. So let's jump in. Matt, I think that this is the topic that you've been waiting on since we put this whole project together. Flow Sports and the paywall. I guess my first question is, what is the benefit here? On I believe it's $30,000 that these schools are making. But how many high school kids and their parents are going to be willing to pay a subscription for 10 weeks plus of football?
Yeah, I mean, thinking a lot about this, it's like there's two things, because I think, just to start off, around like just a general like fan perspective, and someone who has been constantly trying to grow, Augustana football reach. I took a look at the CCIW. It's like, North Park has Boxcast. I mean, it's free, but it's a different app, right? Wash U, several of the others, like Elmhurst has YouTube, Carthage has YouTube. We now have YouTube. North Central and Wheaton's both on that. Carroll's on it. Milliken's and Wash U's on the browser. It's really about like accessibility to fans in the parking lot, accessibility to parents and family members, wherever that, across the country. So to me, it's always been about accessibility. And, I was a squeaky wheel a couple of years ago, and I was showing engagement, kind of throughout, football and baseball, and showing, when we had great broadcasts, we had really high retention of people watching it. So, that's why we ended up going to YouTube. And, when I think about flow, I watch a lot of stuff through track. Both of my sons wrestle for a club, so when we get to some of the state meets and things like that, flow provides a nice, access point to watch, some of the other mats, but you're not looking at high production. I mean, you're looking at literally a digital camcorder. And I even watched a little bit of the Salve Regina game that was on flow from last year. And it's like, it's no different than any other broadcast. So, it really comes down to one, like, are you really tightening up, who can really watch that game, watch that team? If you're thinking about the OAC reach, like, what are you going to do from a recruit perspective? Yeah, you're Mount Union, all right? They're going to know who you are, but from that perspective, like, are they going to be able to see what that environment is like? And I think that's the other part that's a little bit difficult. So I think about, the money and some of those things, but are they really going to be evenly split that across the production side of it? I'm going to say no, they're not. I'm going to say I don't think they're going to get a ton of it. So you're not going to see anything jump up. You're not going to see them pay for broadcasters. I mean, I do this stuff for free, so I'm super passionate about it. And, I talked to even our wrestling coach. He's like, yeah, we turned down going to Flow because they reached out about us. Because college obviously uses track wrestling. So it would almost make more sense there to do that. But at the same point, you're just hindering anybody and everybody who could watch it. So I don't know. I don't think it's a great thing for the sport, personally. I mean, I think the best thing for any Division III team is YouTube. It's on every smart TV. Okay. You can, if we had that in the Ken Anderson Club, I mean, we have both TVs on, and I fought to make sure they had the game on there in the Ken Anderson Club, broadcasting the game and watching it while they're there and having a beer during the game, versus having an FBS, Division I team on. You can't. They're not going to do that for Flow, because then you got to pay for every TV, because you can't log in multiple times. So I don't know. To me, it's just it's a big strain on it. And you might see a few things financially here or there from a school, but I don't know. I just think it's bad for engagement. That's my personal take.
Yeah,
Josh,
yeah. I agree. I mean, I think.
Oh,
say,
go ahead.
Say that again.
No, go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just gonna say, kind of along the same lines. I think it's a penny wise, pound foolish approach, right? If as a former kind of football dad, right? And my kid was recruited out of COVID, so it was a little bit different. But if my kid were coming out of high school today, and we're looking at D3 schools, and you get some game invites, sometimes you don't, whatever. But if you're looking at different regions or whatever, and I'm going to go and maybe check out a couple of games, before we're going in to kind of see a little bit of the vibes, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm not going to go and pay a subscription to go check out. Maybe I just want to check out a game to see what the program is about. Maybe I just want to, whatever. So it does affect the recruitment to a certain degree. For the families that do their due diligence, not every family does that, right? Not every family is going to go out there and kind of do all that. But I know we would have, right? And I would have been super interested, and I would hit paywalls and all that. I would have been like, I'm just going to skip it, right? So I think it does skew it, and I don't think that the amount of money that we're talking about, like if a school needs 30 grand that bad, then they have bigger problems than they're looking at. So I don't see what the risk versus reward is. I feel like it's a bigger risk than it is a reward, just from my perspective as a dad.
You know what? I have a background in corporate sales and business ownership, and a lot of times I look at the statement in the beginning of what the goals and the objectives are. And when you just do a basic Google search and you look at this topic and you see how they state, national exposure, more money to balance the production quality and all those types of things. Well, so far it's early. I'll give them that, but I haven't seen the results match the objectives. And furthermore, you kind of look at the value equation here. When you've got a product that maybe, well, definitely a majority of the people don't know about, and you put it behind a paywall, help me understand the value equation here. And it's a little different because you've got kids maybe that are, in the market looking for schools, but there's a lot of content out there for free, and because not everybody's doing it, I think the schools, the conferences that are behind a paywall, I think they're doing a disservice to themselves.
Well, I wonder for the casual fan, Rambo told the story about how he kind of came into the Division III football community. What are we doing to that casual fan for retention? I mean, for Matt, for Josh, for the people that are going to be able to listen or do a simulcast or whatever, are we going to lose that casual fan that catches an Augustana game, a Whitewater game, a Utica game, a North Central game because these schools want to move to behind a paywall? Would it be better for them to go to like an ESPN style where all the conferences come together and there's one on-demand area? Would you guys like to see it kind of like the PAC does, where they have their own network so that it's offered and free, but it's run by the conference? A hybrid style, or are we just not there yet?
Is that question for Rambo, or who's that for?
Anybody. No, that was just for anybody. My fault.
I defer. I don't like the paywall. I don't think it's great for it. But I'm not one that does the broadcast. I don't know much about it. I just think there's not enough viewership to warrant a paywall for it. I mean, Mount Union would get views. Mary Hardin Baylor would get views. I don't. North Central. I don't know. Me and David are at games. They're not packed except for the big games. I don't even know if we'd get viewers as far as if they threw it behind a paywall. Honestly, I don't think it's a great idea. I understand why they do it. I just don't think they should do it. I mean, grow it big enough. Like here's the thing. North Central. I've been to the last 3 Stag Bowls. Okay, right. They'll put out an email. They need $50,000 to send the players that aren't going to dress, band, dance, cheer, and 3 hours later they've got that money. So why not just do a hey, for the broadcast? Say, can you kick in? Can you do that? Make a little fun. I don't know. I mean, for $30,000. I mean, add $20 to the student activity fee or something if you need $30,000. I don't know, but like I said, I'm not from that side of things, but I just know I don't think making people pay for something that's not super visible anyway is smart, because I think what the Stag Bowl get 250,000 viewers, and that was on ESPN, the big ESPN. Granted, the time slot sucked, but that's my take.
Well, I was just going to say, when it comes to marketing the programs, you've got business departments at every one of these schools. You've got some pretty bright kids at these schools. What an opportunity. What a real life opportunity to take a class and say, here's your project. Imagine being a student, being a part of that, developing something and putting that on a resume. And I think that's going to have a lot more impact in terms of marketing the program, the school, and everything. And everybody benefits without going and nickel and diming a bunch of other individual alum or fans.
Right.
I don't know what I missed. I just had to drop off for a second. Mikey, did you talk about the WIC network yet?
No, I didn't, but the WIAC network is it's outstanding. It's got to be one of the
Yes.
best out there. It's a free service. You can add it to every smart TV. So like right next when I go on my
Sweet.
TV, right next to Netflix is the WIAC network. It's got every
Wow.
sports, men's and women's on there. You click on what's going on live, you see it all at one time. You can flip between games instantly. It's fantastic, and I think there's a real opportunity for someone to have a competitive advantage here. As all these conferences start to one by one go to Flow Sports, well, if you're one of the 3 or 4 or 5 conferences remaining that's not on Flow Sports in a few years, if it ends up going this way, well, you have a huge advantage. So I think some of these conferences, I hope they're talking about, hey, if we can just wait this out, these guys are just going to end up killing themselves, and we'll be the only ones left standing that have a free product.
Right.
So
Good
the people
point.
that I've talked to, just to piggyback on that, I mean, that $30,000, like you guys were saying earlier, the people that I've talked to, the athletic directors and the departments and even the chancellor seem to like it because it's a guaranteed amount of money. Like, you have people out there that are trying to sell sponsorships and get businesses to, donate to the program and support the program. Well, that only works if people are, willing to go out there and get going and hit the ground running. So this just seems like an easy way just to grab the cash, and they don't really care how many people they're turning off of the program. It might benefit my radio broadcast for Whitewater, but kind of an offshoot of that, like I feel bad for the students who are running Cable 19 on campus, because that's available for the community on a cable service, and that's how they do it. So they pump it out, through the campus TV station. It goes out to cable. You can watch it on the WIAC network. Like, it's a really great thing for not only the programs in the conference, but also the student people who want to get into television. So now if you're handicapping them by doing this and not giving them the extra exposure, I don't think it's going to affect their, quality of work, I guess. But it's just really limiting them for who's going to see them. Will more people tune into the radio broadcast because they don't want to do the paywall? Maybe. Is that my big concern? No. I want this to succeed for the Division III programs and to get the maximum amount of exposure. And if people would probably do maybe a little bit better job of selling, their product and investing in the infrastructure so that they can pull people in and businesses and get the community to tie in, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. That's my feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can we get
Cooper,
Coop,
anything?
and then I'll wrap up, yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of really good stuff there, really good insight. The reality is, though, there's really not that many Division III conferences with a draw like the WIAC or the WIAC, right? So that's why a lot of these teams and programs are automatically just going to take the buyout, because you don't have that kind of draw where you can make money on sponsorships and otherwise on a great broadcast. The WIAC Sports Network is badass, though. I've got it on my TV. It looks just like the Mountain West Network, which I watched a game on yesterday with UNLV. It's right up there with those type of applications. It's really good. The only other thing that I kind of wanted to pitch in on, it's a little bit of it is on topic, but it's not exactly what we're talking about. And I don't want to go on a tangent, but there was a lot of discussion last year about the ESPN Plus partnership for the playoffs, which I thought was fantastic. And I think that's a lot different than the Flow Sports situation for a million different reasons. I think that the broadcast looks great, the exposure is great, because anybody that has cable TV has ESPN Plus on their TV. It's almost always included. There's 28 million subscribers in the United States. So the chances of people watching a Division III playoff game astronomically increase if it's on ESPN Plus compared to Flow Sports, which is the worst case scenario, or even a regular Division III broadcast.
Yeah.
The last thing I'll just wrap up with, because like you said, Carla, this is I'm super passionate about this, but one thing Josh had talked about is and I see this on the Augie campus, right? It's like over the last several years, and it isn't just Augie, but it's across Division III sports. You've seen a little bit of a lack of engagement from students. There's not a ton of incentive for them to be sometimes at the games, and when they put incentives behind it, they're there, they're packed, they're doing all that stuff. Why would you limit, if someone can't be at that game, a student's exposure to it? Like, are you going to pay for that now from the school so that your students can access that around campus? The answer is no. So you still need to give them another form, a way to engage with that team so that they may want to see it, they may want to show it. Maybe they couldn't be at the game because we've got family weekend, and, sometimes they do senior day with that stuff too, and they do, several different, sports at that time. So it's like they're just taken away. So, because I'll be honest with you, colleges are bad at scheduling events and not making, I'm biased here, but not making the football game the sole focus, the sole event during a certain time slot. They have alumni, up at a different building doing something completely different. It's like you're taking away 200 people that could be at that game, and that's a big deal. So I don't know. The other part of it is just the engagement, just taking away from the student experience there as well. So that's kind of my piece.
Amen.
I have nothing to add. I think everybody added a lot of good. I really like Josh's side on the, we're taking away from the comm students, the people that are putting the Monday through Friday in to put on a good broadcast for Saturday, and you're kind of taken away from that. But that being said, moving on to our second topic, there's some news out of Lycoming. I talked to Coach Clark about their newest recruit, freshman Tom Cilio, 58 years old, a high school graduate of 1984 from Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I talked to Coach Clark, and he said Tom is doing a nice job for us. He's been a good leader and a role model to the young guys on our team, and is an amazing example in the weight room for everyone. He's never played high school football, so there's a learning curve, but he's a worker, very coachable and eager to learn. Willing to do anything and everything we ask of him. I thought he would have a positive impact on our team, and thus far through camp, he definitely has. I'm going to start it off first and foremost before we really get into this topic. By a show of hands, how many people here are putting on the pads one more time and going through a camp and trying to do the damn thing without needing to go to the training room immediately following maybe sprints? Because I don't think I get through. I might have one good pop left in the shoulder, and it's going to be down at my hip for the rest of my life. So if anybody wants to start there, that's where we're starting, and then go from there.
I'll tell you, I popped a hamstring playing wiffle ball in Eldridge, Tennessee, like 2 weekends ago. Okay, so I'll just leave it at that.
So that's off the list.
Hey, a couple years ago.
Pads on?
A couple years ago, I was
story.
having really bad back pain, and I was like, I mean, I could not walk my dog because I couldn't walk for more than 3 or 4 minutes without severe pain. And it was like the sciatica was going all the way down and into the calf, and I finally got to a specialist because, of course, they make you fail physical therapy first. And the guy shows me my x-rays. He goes, you see all this down here between your L5, S1, and it's all cloudy? And I said, well, I'm guessing that's not good. He goes, yeah, at some point you fractured your spine. And I said, wait, what? I'm like, wouldn't I have felt that? He's like, well, everybody's different. But essentially he said that the scarring was getting to the point where it was impacting it, or maybe I'd done something recent. So the answer is no. I'm not going back to camp. I tip my hat to this guy. This is a perfect example of playing for the love of the game and getting out there and, just putting yourself out there. That's outstanding.
And all jokes aside, let's dive into this a little bit. What does that do for the 18 and 19-year-old kid that may be struggling with his first experience with college ball, and you're looking across the locker room and seeing a 58-year-old guy who's in it with you, and just I'm sure he's not feeling the greatest after practice, but he's pulling 2-a-days just like they are. So what are we thinking there?
It depends. Is he kicking your ass?
I hope,
You know, I mean,
Old
I
man
hope for his
strength.
sake.
you know, if you're a kid trying to make the team, like this could go one of two ways, right? You rally around the guy. It's awesome. You really bring him into the fold of the team. On the other hand, if he's winning the one-on-ones and showing you
got
up,
a bigger problem.
I really need to get my act together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You-
Carlo,
Listen, I would
Josh
always.
and Tony, are either one of you joining up? Are you,
I would-
either one of you
I
throwing
would
shoulder
always-
pads
I would
on one
always-
more time?
I would always joke with Coach Fagiano when my kid played that I had 2 more reps in me. But one of them would be spent from me running from the sideline to the middle of the field, so I really only had 1. But the only times that I would really say that to him, there were 2 really close friends that I would hang out with before every game, during the game, and after the game. And their name was Tito and Don Julio. I would hang out with either one of them all the time. And usually after hanging out with either of those guys, right, would be when I'd be yelling at Coach Fudge, "Come on, Coach, I got 2 more reps." And every once in a while, he would look at me. He was like, "You wouldn't last from the stands down to the time without falling on your face." So to me, listen, I love the story. I love what it says. It would have been great if this was like a Netflix show and like the story evolved and how this, whatever. But I see it for what it is. It's kind of a little it screams a little bit of publicity stunt for me. To be honest, I mean, some schools have 150 kids on their roster, right? 200 sometimes, believe it or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those kids are going to play JV ball, are not going to see that field that first year. There's no way you're going to see that field, right? So, like, if this guy actually makes the field, back to the point that was mentioned before, then who do you beat out? Like, what's going on with your recruiting? Is he that good? Is this guy going to come in now and, at 58 years old and he beat out kids? Then I don't know, maybe you got to look at your recruiting. Listen, I hope he does great. I want to follow the story. I hope it's amazing for him. But that's a spot that somebody didn't get if he gets playing time. So I don't know. Like I said, the old guy in me, I love the story. I love to see old guys go out there and kind of get after it and get one. Why don't we have like like college dads over 50, like a JV, like a super JV squad, and we could all go after each other. Like I'm down with that.
Y'all know this is y'all know this is not the oldest player in college football history, right?
I did not. Who is the oldest player in college football history?
Yeah, the oldest player is Mike Flint. He played for Sul Ross. He was 59 years old in 2007. And he joined the team and actually got on the field against us. I think he got to play like 2 snaps, but the story with that guy was he was the team captain in the early 70s out at Sul Ross, which they were Division II back then. And he got kicked off the team for fighting, and then he still had eligibility left in 2007, and he came back as a 59-year-old. I think he may have even touched 60 when he was on the field there.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
He was yoked.
I'm not doing it.
Like he was definitely on.
I'm
like,
not doing it.
HGH. Like he was.
I've made some jokes to some of the coaches that I've had on in previous after we've finished recording that there is a year maybe out there of eligibility somewhere in Bethany's records. They can keep it. They can keep it over there. It can stay hidden. I don't need the eligibility. I have a hard enough time waking up and not tweaking something at this point, which none of you old heads told me was going to happen before I turned 40. I'm not even 35 yet, and everything starts to hurt. So, anybody else have anything on Tom before we move on to our cruise corner?
Yeah, I'll just say, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, if you look, so I work with a lot of military guys. I'm around Marines all the time. Now, they're half my age, but they put me up to all the shit they do. And, it's pathetic and awful, but I try. But if you look at my homepage on my Twitter, it's pinned for years now. Every year I do, it's called the Murphy workout. And it's run a mile, do 100
Lay on
pull-ups, do
Murph.
200 push-ups,
Yep.
300 squats, and then finish with another mile. Now, if you look at now that's one workout. That's an hour and whatever for me. My wife captured me. I finished that last run, and I dropped, and I was throwing up. She took a picture. She got an awesome picture of me puking in the ocean, and I pinned that. And I'm thinking, that guy, what a pipe hitter, man. That's every day he's going through, and he's got 8 years on me. And, dude, like David was saying, my hip, my knees, and my wife goes with me. She monitors me doing this stuff in case she has to call 911. So I'm just thinking, like, this dude, man, I mean, it is amazing. I hope he does it. My fear is it's a little bit like the Tyson-Logan Paul fight, or Jake Paul, whichever one, where, Tyson had a good round, and that was round 1. And then after that, all us dudes like me and Tony and David were like, oh, shit, this is over. Like, he had a good round 1, and I'm like, he's done. He was cooked after that. And I'm like, this guy, I mean, when you get our age, man, it's recovery. I don't know how this guy is going to practice and then coming back the next day after all that banging and pounding and hitting and whatever they're doing. I mean, holy shit. He has got to be in ice baths and on the ibuprofen like you would not believe. So I'm rooting for him. It's cool. I hope he makes it through the season, and whatever he plays, doesn't play. If he finishes that season, because dudes our age, it's all about getting to the end of something and grueling and grinding through it. If he gets to the end, good on him, man. I am rooting like a MFer for that dude. So, go, man. Go, dude. Get it done. Do it for us.
Hey, Rainbow, before you do that
Yes,
next
sir.
workout, have your wife call me, and I'll make sure she's got a good life insurance policy on you.
I got one, brother. I got one. I did that years ago. I said, man, my kids were still little. I got that taken care of because I do too much stupid shit. So.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end. If you haven't yet, for those of you that are trying to figure out what we're talking about, you should look up Tom on his Instagram page. There's a very impressive video of him pulling a fire truck behind him I think it was last year.
Nice.
So check that out. But our next, and this will change periodically this week for our inaugural week, we're gonna take a trip down to Texas and learn a little bit about Texas football and the ASC and what's going on down there. We're gonna call this section Crew's Corner. So, Coop, if you would like to take this away and start us off with just explain to us who's in the conference and how the conference works and what your expectations are for UMHB this year.
Yeah, absolutely. If my kids get too loud, somebody just raise their hand and I can pass the baton to somebody else. But so there's actually 3 conferences in Texas that include Division III football teams. So we are on an island, but the reason they call it an island is because when the playoffs committee and then that whole thing comes around, they don't really necessarily care conferences so much. It's more about travel expenses, and we all know the history behind Division III playoffs and travel expenses and island teams, right? The ASC, which is the conference that Mary Hardin-Baylor's in, which is obviously my team, we're all Texas teams. You got Mary Hardin-Baylor, Hardin-Simmons, East Texas Baptist, Howard Payne, and now we just robbed a couple of teams from the SCAC, which was Texas Lutheran, who played in the playoffs last year, got absolutely waxed by Linfield in Oregon. Wasn't really surprising, but is what it is. McMurray, Austin College, which is a small little liberal arts school north of Dallas. Centenary, Hendricks, and Lyon, those are out of state. I think they're Arkansas. We paid, as a conference, a $10 million buyout to go get McMurray and Schreiner, who is starting their program this year. They'll officially be playing next season. So now we've got 6. So that leaves the SCAC in limbo. We were in limbo. Now they're in limbo. There is like a grace period for the automatic bid, so I think they'll retain their automatic bid for this upcoming season. We never lost ours from a couple of years back when we started losing teams. But we're good now. We've got 6. I think we're looking for a few more, but whoever comes next is not going to get paid the way those 2 teams got paid, because we needed them worse than we need the next few teams. And then you have the SAA, and there's only 2 Texas teams in that one. It's Trinity, San Antonio, which North Central, y'all have played them in the playoffs up there. Good, solid program. Another very difficult school, good academic school. So a little harder to build an incredible roster there because of the academic standards, but they've done a great job. And then you've got Southwestern, like I said. Southwestern is in the Austin area. They're in Georgetown, which is right by Austin. They were, like their couple first inaugural seasons, they were in the American Southwest Conference, which is our conference, and they just really struggled. Again, really good academic school, just had a hard time competing. So that's what the landscape looks like in Texas for Division III football. When it comes down to playoffs, the latest change to the criteria actually helped us a lot, because in years past, a 7-3, 6-4 team with 2 conference losses like we had last year, right, never would have had a snowball's chance in hell to make the playoffs. I mean, that just wouldn't happen. Like it was honestly, and even still, it was shocking that we got in last year, even as a fan. But because of those changes, that enabled more Texas teams to get in. In hindsight, TLU got their automatic bid. It's better to see better teams get in, but it is what it is. What else? What else did we have for Texas?
My question really was about the recruiting saturation, because I mean there's a lot of schools, not just Division III schools obviously, but there's a lot of Division III schools. How do those battle lines get drawn? Is it very regional for each school, or is it Mary Hardin-Baylor and Hardin-Simmons and Trinity and McMurray kind of having bigger names than some of the other schools that are on the come up, or Shriner being in a brand new program? What's the recruitment like for that?
Yeah, it's really nuanced, because Division III, obviously, you've got schools that really focus on the academic standards, and so they can only recruit certain players. Mary Hardin-Baylor, we're a little more flexible, I should say, on the academic side of things, which we obviously use to our benefit. The better teams, Hardin-Simmons, Mary Hardin-Baylor, end up more so competing in the Metroplex, East Texas. I mean, really all over the state, and they're competing with Division II and FCS teams as far as the similar recruit pool. Probably similar to how Mount Union and North Central and some of the WIAC schools recruit. It's the same player pool, right? When you get to the top of Division III, we've always said, the best of Division III and Division II, there is a lot of FCS. Yeah, it's really, I think you actually asked me on the note, since there's so much in Texas, how do we use that to our advantage? There are small schools in Texas that I've seen some of the best FCS Division II, Division III players in the history of the division come from, like, tiny little towns in East Texas. And East Texas has some of the best athletes in the entire country. Big schools, medium schools, little schools. Some of the best players we've ever had at our program came from really small schools. And I mean, we've had NFL players that came from medium-sized schools. We've had, Jarrell Freeman is kind of our claim to fame NFL vet, all-pro with the Colts and the Bears. He went to University High in Waco, which is, I think they were 3A at the time he was there. Just under-recruited. I mean, right there under Baylor's nose, right? Big 12 school, and wasn't even recruited by Baylor, comes to Mary Hardin-Baylor instead as a free safety, and, hits the weights and puts some PB&Js in, and he's in the NFL, right? So,
Right.
Definitely, it's a very rich recruiting area, without a doubt. And then last question you had asked me, which I kind of had to think about. My answer here is the UMHB standard dropping. This is more of a school-specific question, obviously, which I'm at. And is the rest of the ASC catching up? I would say recently, like, I can't say that it's not because our biggest rival, Hardin-Simmons, they've beaten us 3 out of their last 4 games, which for a long time, from like the mid-2000s to 2014, we beat them, I think it was like 13 or 14 times in a row. We still, I think we're like 23-9 in that series. So it's still, but it's definitely a competitive rivalry, more so of late. I mean, they were beating us 44-0 at the end of the 3rd quarter on our home field in October of last year. Talk about shaking the foundation of our program. I mean, that was shocking. I've never been at a game and felt like that. It was nuts. So. But we needed it because I think it really woke us up. We ended up, beating them in the playoffs and, kind of raising the standard and getting back to our standard. And then this year, I think, we could potentially have a good enough roster to compete again for the big trophy. So, yeah, very exciting.
I got a question for you.
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was going to say, one of the things is you were talking a lot about just Texas schools. It's heavily recruited, great athletes. But I was thinking a little bit about to this, like, monetary, aspect. It's like you see, especially at a high school level, $6-7 million stadiums built for high school teams. Do you see that translate to those smaller Division III teams? And then, kind of on top of that, like, are they getting a lot of the funding type support? Or are they running into some of those like similar issues?
Is as a player, or who running into the
the school, for instance? Like, we think about like, we got to raise $50,000 to get the team to fly out to the Stag Bowl. Like some of those things. I mean, why folks have why the OAC is going to the paywall? Like some of those things, right? Yeah. It's monetarily driven. Maybe it's because you're not getting it. And I'm like, I think about Texas. I mean, football is synonymous with Texas, especially at the high school level. But I'm like, at the D3 level, are they running into that same issue, or does that money continue to flow because it is Texas football?
Right.
No, they're definitely running into the issues. Not my school, thankfully. We're very fortunate in that regard. But 100%. I mean, Austin College, Southwestern, like those are liberal arts schools. So like you have a lot of times you'll have administration clashing with the administration. Sometimes doesn't even want the athletic program to be a thing. So 100% you run into that, and that's not a Texas problem. That's across the country. I mean, that's countless examples. But as far as recruiting, you definitely see some scenarios where you'll recruit players that are playing in a $15 million high school stadium, and then they go play at McMurray or Austin College, and it looks like a 2A field, and maybe they stick around, maybe they don't, maybe they end up on our team next year. But it's a very unique landscape when you put it in that sense, because of how huge high school football is here, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions for Crew before we move on to our underrated, our unranked section?
Great job. That was awesome.
Great job. That was solid.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Next up, we're moving to we're talking about unranked teams in this portion of the show. And the first one is, who are the sleeping giants? Who are the teams that nobody's talking about? Maybe not even receiving votes yet. But who are we as a group? Who are you guys excited to see? Maybe not a team that you necessarily follow all the time, but they're in your conference, or just a team you're excited to see. And whoever wants to start, you're more than welcome.
I wanted to actually get the WIAC guys. It's not WIAC. I'm gonna throw that out there. It's the WIAC now. WIAC, WIAC. No, I'm gonna make a plug for a buddy of mine up there. But I think about Mike, like when it's like Platteville. I don't want to say they came out of nowhere last year. Because, I mean, they put a hurting on Augustana in the Isthmus Bowl. And, like, the back half of that season, they were killing it. So they just continued that. But I'm like, who isn't, in that, we think about, like, kind of Oshkosh. It's like Whitewater finished 4-3, Stout, Eau Claire, and Stevens Point. Like, man, who's going to make some noise, or who's maybe getting a nice swing up in the WIAC that isn't ranked right now? I mean, they're the conference.
Mikey, I'll let you go.
Yeah, I think the team to watch this year would be Stout, UW Stout out of Menominee, who is an unranked team. I'm not sure if they're receiving votes or not, maybe a few. I threw them in my top 25 because they have probably the second best quarterback in the conference behind Caleb Blaha coming back this year. Adam Moen is his name. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the whole country. He's an excellent pocket passer, extremely good accuracy between like 10 to 20 yards at mid-range. He's just deadly. One thing I do worry about them is they lost their offensive coordinator, who's now at their rival in lacrosse, which is why I think this offensive coordinator is such an awesome system. They're never huddling. They're always at the line of scrimmage, but they're the opposite of River Falls. River Falls is running a play like every 19 seconds, where Stout, they're not huddling, but they're going slow. They're using all the play clock. They're changing the play at the last second, and they're just methodical. They want 12, 15-yard drives. So I'm looking for Stout this year. They return a lot of production on both sides of the ball. They have a very good receiver named Devontae Evans who can go up and get it over anybody. So out of the WIAC up here, Stout is a team that's been knocking on that door, and they got the quarterback to do it.
What about out of the CCIW?
Dude, everything runs through North Central and Wheaton.
That's right. Nothing runs through Wheaton,
honest.
My man.
Yeah, I mean, but it's ultimately, it's like there is no third through sixth is where all the magic happens in terms of like going to the Isthmus Bowl. That's where kind of dog eat dog in the middle of the pack there. But I mean, nobody else. I mean, until they can show and prove that North Central is not the clear number one and Wheaton's the clear number two. It ain't going to happen out of the CCIW. I think the one to watch personally, and I hate doing this because I'm not a fan of them. I got heavily recruited by them. I always say they're overrated, but they come up in a lot of this tailgate discussion. Out of the ARC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they got some votes, right? Then they're outside the top 25. They got 17 votes, in the preseason. But really, it's like the only loss they had last year was a 14-7 loss to Wartburg. And hell, beginning of the game, I think they were going to possibly win. That was the discussion. People were following it at the Augie game, and we were talking about it. So, I think someone who potentially could maybe flip the ARC. I mean, Coe's the only one I could really see doing that. I mean, the only other conference I'm a lot more familiar with than the CCIW, but I think they're an interesting team specifically. So I'll be curious to see what they do this year.
What about
Carlo?
Oh, go ahead, Rambo.
Oh. Yeah, I was going to say I was curious of the unranked because I took a look at the D3 top 25 earlier today, and I was a little surprised because I'm going to take us back to Texas. Trinity, they were deep in the other receiving votes, and I'll tell you what, man, they lost a lot of guys coming out of 23 into 24, and Coach Urban, he is a hell of a coach because he got them in the playoffs again last year, and I don't think anybody expected that. They lost Tucker Horn and Caleb Harmel and those guys, and they were leading UMHB in the fourth quarter in that first-round playoff game last year, and I think people sort of forget. They were right there. That was a back and forth because we were watching that. I was watching that game, the score. And then here's the other thing. They had a horrible tragedy. Coach Lytle's daughter was swept up in those floods. Unfortunately, she passed away. They're a faith-based school. They're going to come together. Their family. They traveled to North Central in 23. There has never been a better away besides Wheaton, okay? They filled that place. They loved their guys. They loved their team. They loved their school. They were everywhere, and they were a great traveling. So I know they're close-knit. They're going to rally around that coach. And they surprised people last year. Now they got purpose. Now they come together. Can you imagine how tight that camp is after that with those kids all coming together for the coach? So I'm going to say I think I ranked them in the 15, 16 range, but, man, I would look out for them. That's the way I see it. As far as like the unranked that I saw that sort of seemed a little too far unranked was Trinity out of Texas.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I had Trinity and also Endicott. I think the secret here is you're looking at, it's kind of like March Madness, who's going to be the Cinderella team, and it's always, great coaching and a senior-laden team. And I think in this case, what we look for is a returning quarterback who's dynamic. They have a lot of other offensive production returning, as well as just a core on the line. The football games are won up front, right? So when you look at that, based on what I see, and a shout out to Logan for all of his Logan Hansen of all of the analytics that he does. When I was taking a look at it, Endicott and Trinity both stood out to me.
Go ahead, Tony.
No, I was gonna say, my heart wants Utica to be in the mix. My heart, right? My heart wants us to be in the mix, right? We had a 5-5 season, so but let's call it what it is. They have a lot of work to do to kind of even be kind of in those names. But other teams out of the E8, right? Like the E8 is going to be the Wild Wild West, right? There are a lot of coaching changes. Mm-hmm. Fitz moving on. I know Cortland is ranked 10, but we don't really know what we're going to have in Cortland until we get there. I'm sure the coaching staff is motivated, from what I hear, to really make Cortland saying, hey, we didn't go anywhere. We're still up here with the big boys. But, aside from a whole new coaching staff, they had a lot of, Zach Boyce is not there anymore. Like, what do they have there, right? I think Brockport is going to be a gritty team. Brockport has always been that team that if you let them in, they're going to frustrate you defensively. They have a lot of talent up there, Brockport, and I'm gonna see them this year, very closely, when they play Utica. But I do feel like, I'm gonna be a homer all the way, but I do feel like we're gonna know what we're gonna get out of Utica after week 1, right? They got W&J week 1 at Washington and Jefferson, and we're going to know exactly what is the work that Utica is going to have to do, or what they've done up until this point after week 1. I think I tip my hat off to them. It's a tough first game to kind of go out there and get after it and see exactly gut check what you got. So I'm excited about that. So I do think the E8, and kind of leading into kind of almost the next topic a little bit, you're going to see, I feel like the E8 does have a couple of teams that could be sleepers that can get, if you get them into the tourney, could make some surprises. I know when Utica got in a couple of years ago, we surprised a lot of folks, right? We got in there. We weren't supposed to be in there. We went to Susquehanna. They were undefeated, and we beat them in their shop. So, I'm an E8 guy.
I got a question before we run out of time on this one. The OACAC. PAC obviously loses Carnegie Mellon, so the three-way tie at the top. The top will be different this year. It's obviously W&J and Grove City's kind of conference to lose over the last 2 years. And then in the OAC, with the departure of John Carroll and what we saw from Marietta last year, who's also going to have a new coach, do we think Marietta is the new second place team? Are they close to being the team that maybe knocks off Mount in a regular season game? And what do we expect from the W&J Grove City game when it comes? And that's for anybody.
Yeah, on the OAC, when you lose, anytime you lose a coach, you've had some success. That's kind of TBD. I think you got, there's a lot of unknowns there. Did they lose kids because the coach left? Did some of their key players, go elsewhere? I don't know. It's hard to keep track of all that with such a big division. And totally out of my wheelhouse, but without being able to answer and have a lot of those details, I'm not really sure that. I think it's kind of throwing darts in the dark at this point to try to figure that out. It'll be interesting to watch, though. Who is going to step in to that next spot?
Right.
I mean, I think a little bit, Carlo, when we did the coaches roundtable with Sirianni, it's like, I mean, I like to take a look at coaches, and it's like, do you get a feeling of like you would love to run through a wall for this guy? That's first and foremost. He brings that. But then secondly, the thing that really stood out to me about his conversation is how he has such a great support from the administration about driving a really good team there. And if you have a school that is really only focused on academics and doesn't see the benefit of sports driving them academically, both financially, but also going out and recruiting great talent that want to go and get a great degree, they struggle. And he's got such great support from his administration. It's like, to me, that's a deadly combination when you think about leadership at the Division III level and what W&J has. So that was one of my favorite interviews and just probably one of my favorite coaches in that. So that was a nice fly on the wall.
Well,
totally agree, man. W&J, Sirianni, I think they're going to leapfrog him. I mean, that dude is different, man. And I think they were the 26th ranked team, right? They were the first other receiving vote team, so they're right there. Yeah.
Now, Matt, lead us into Hanson's ratings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll take a quick look at this. One of the things I wanted to share, right, is I love all the stats that continue to come out. Logan Hanson does such a phenomenal job. D3 Datacast, does a great job as well. But so I wanted to pick, a couple of things as we're kind of working through this to look at some different analytics and stats. And I thought this one was pretty interesting when we look at the average number of teams, playoff teams, through 10,000, simulations. And, you've got the WIAC there at 2.5. The CCIW just less than 2, right? That's North Central, and then it's like, does Wheaton get in? Then the MIAC, the PAC, the NCAC, it kind of starts to go down from there. But just such an interesting stat when we start to look at some of this stuff. I mean, where do you feel like, is there a conference that is going to get, from the E8, right? It's 1.37. So basically you're looking at, you're going to win it. Who's going to get a bid in without winning the conference? I mean, the WIAC, it's 2, and then is it 3?
And you brought up the good point about the ARC and Co and Wartburg and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That would be the team, right? Co would be with them at a 1.57. That would, if you're looking for a second team to get in, I think that's the conference.
Yeah, I haven't looked at their schedule this year, but I don't know.
I just want to start out with Logan, okay? That guy, for the stuff he does, is so interesting and so cool for the division, and it gives us so much fire and so much cool stuff to look at that guy is not appreciated enough. I mean, he is throwing stuff out and graphs, and I don't know anything about it. Sometimes I feed his stuff into AI and like, can you translate this for an idiot? But
dumb it down.
He catches crap, and all he's doing is throwing out fun stuff. And that dude, me and some NCC people were talking about this. He had the Stag Bowl 41-24. Okay, he whittled that thing down. He was off by a frickin' point. Who calls 41? Like, he called a missed extra point, for God's sake. As far as like his thing, I think the WIAC gets 3. Here's my thing with the CCIW. He's got us almost at 2. Wheaton starts at Mount Union. So just remember that. They start at Mount. They come to North Central. I don't know how that worked. I think we went there for the last 3 years straight or something, but I don't know. We must have won the coin flip this time. But yeah.
Don't
but
get
yeah,
me started.
they've got a tough sledding to start. So
I mean, Wheaton, if they go and they win at Mount Union, and then they finish, number 2 in the CCIW with another 1 loss to North Central, they're in.
They're in.
That's 100%.
I just don't see. I know we have to in the CCIW now with NPI. We have to root for them technically because it helps our strength of schedule and all that. Because but that's hard to do. That's really hard to do. I appreciate Mount Union. I love them for their tradition and for their dominance and what they've done. So I'm not a Mount Union hater. Sort of the North Central fan of me hopes Mount Union lays 50 on them, but I think we're supposed to root for them to win technically for NPI reasons. But that's going to be very difficult in my house.
I mean, I think it's a great point you talk about
for the scheduling,
Logan, though.
Yeah. Logan's a king, man. I will not tolerate Logan hate.
A couple of years ago, he lives in Iowa. He's, just he was a couple hours away from me, but so he and I have chatted for years, kind of on the side and stuff. And I said at some point, like, how sure are you of your stuff? Because there's some of the things like I like to talk about in our pregame broadcast. I mean, what is the spread that he has that Augie's playing? It's always pretty darn close, and I think he's told me maybe 2 or 3 years ago. He's like, it's with like 85% certainty. That's pretty damn good odds. You want to take that to Vegas? I'll take that anytime. But it's also like he also is not claiming he's the expert. He's like, here's everything. You can go to his site. It'll give you absolutely everything. And if you want to challenge it and look at it, he's willing to hear it for sure. But it's like, I don't know. So, but back to the ratings though. It's like, man, I don't know. I'd be curious to see who is who elevates that 1.5 or 1.6 to 2 when it's all said and done, and then come back and overlay. Let's make this a thing where we come back and we overlay his prediction to this, and I'll be curious to see how accurate it is.
Yep.
Well, I'd like to see if as you had that graphic up, I was looking. I think the PAC was 1.6 or 1.87. So you're figuring there W&J Grove City. Is there a possibility that we should be paying attention to Westminster as well? I mean, they won a bowl game last year. They beat the team that I asked about with Marietta. They knocked them off in that bowl game there. Are they a team that could sneak in as a Pool C at large?
I don't know if I know enough about them.
I don't know enough about. I know they're not playing Geneva, and they're very upset about it. I know that's a sore. We learned that. I learned that 2 weeks in a row. I interviewed Scott, and then I interviewed Gino, and both weeks I asked the same question and didn't realize that it was. I mean, I knew it was going to be a sore subject. Didn't know it was going to get the reaction I got. So, but does anybody else have anything to add before we roll out through here?
I mean, I would like to. Yeah, I'd like to get Mikey's interpretation of the WIC after last year. He had, 4 teams tie at 4-3, and you had Stout make the Isthmus Bowl. Oshkosh, had a chance, gacked it away, and then, I think if we're going back to a more committee approach rather than a strict numbers approach. I don't know that you'd be getting the love this year from a lot of people when Platteville wins the conference for the first time in I don't know how many years, and you send them to Wartburg to start with. I mean, that was very, very cruel. La Crosse had basically a play-in game, and they stomped Northwestern, and their reward is to get to go to Collegeville. So it's like that's a tough second round game there. So I don't think you're going to get as much parity as we saw last year. This year in the WIAC, I'm curious to see what Mikey thinks. I don't know that you're going to get a whole lot of separation, but then people are really high on Platteville. I'm not sure I'm that high on them. La Crosse either. If Blaha stays healthy at River Falls, I think they should be the clear number one. I don't know, Mikey. Are they getting 3 teams in this year to your eyes?
Well, someone on here, I can't remember who it was, just said, I think the WIAC might get 3 or whatever. I don't think the WIAC gets 3. I think they're going to get 2 again. I think it's just we just beat each other up way too much, and it's one of those things where now with Stout being so good, that they're just one of those teams that they finished 6th how many years in a row, but they are good enough to beat they're good enough to beat La Crosse. They're good enough to beat everybody this year. I don't think any WIAC team is going undefeated in league play. So then if you have another team that picks up another loss in non-conference, you're really screwed. I think it's going to be 2 teams. I love La Crosse this year. I think they're the team to beat for sure. Second place team could really beat anybody. But some other conferences that I really liked that have a chance to get 2 that were under 2 on that could be the MIAA. Hope is outstanding. They return a lot of guys. Alma has one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So that's a really good 2-team conference. And then when we talk about the ARC, I love Poe as well. They were just outside my top 25, but a team I might like even more who's receiving 0 votes is Central. Central has a really, really good team this year. And they actually are ranked ahead of Co in their coaches poll, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I think those 2 leagues could send a couple teams. And then always the E8 and the Liberty League. A team like Ithaca, I almost consider them, a blue blood still, where they've just had such a rich history of being always at the top of that league and a top 25 team. That's a program that can just turn it back on out of nowhere. So look out for a team like that.
No, I'm a little interested at the 2 WIAC guys. One has the feel of River Falls with Blaha, as long as he stays healthy, should be the clear number 1, and then La Crosse being yours, Mike. I'm a little interested at the difference between the Wisconsin guys. That's an interesting.
These guys have PTSD,
there's
Carlo.
a different part of the state.
They're used to beating the shit out of each other, and they got PTSD.
Yeah, part of that Wisconsin sober thing. Maybe one of them are
Wisconsin sober. It's my new thing. Crew, you got anything for us on the topic? Anybody that you think any conference that you think maybe sneaks a second team in?
I think he had to check out.
Nope. Well, that makes sense of why he hasn't moved it a lot. I was wondering if it was on my end. I was like, man, he is really.
He's got great concentration.
He's locked in. Yeah, he's locked
in
in.
the staring
really
contest.
Locked in. Well, I want to take a minute on this Sunday to thank you guys for taking the time on this Sunday evening to join us. And for those of you at home, I want to say thank you very much for listening and joining us for our first of many of these. And Matt, you do some amazing things. The shout out to PTI and the ticker on the bottom. I'm excited to see how far this really goes. And just thank you guys for making it possible.
Thanks for having us. A lot of fun.